Hey, everybody out there. This is the Anonymous Author Podcast, and I'm your host, Anonymous the Author. Thanks for joining me. Today, we will be looking at the theme of strength and what that means to me. We will be analyzing Women by Alice Walker. I hope you guys stay tuned. I think you'll enjoy that one. I hope you all have been taking life by the pen and being the author of your own destinies, creating the future that you want to see. So without further ado, let's get things started. They were women then, my mama's generation. Husky of voice, stout of step, with fists as well as hands. How they battered down doors in iron starch white shirts. How they led armies, head ragged generals. Across minefields, booby-trapped ditches to discover books, desks, a place for us. How they knew what we must know, without knowing a page of it themselves. That was Women by Alice Walker. I think that's a very powerful poem by Miss Alice Walker, titled Women. I do believe that this is about the time period that she was in, seeing strong leaders and African-American women in the household that while they might not have had a formal education, that they instilled a sense of aspiration to their children, saying that, hey, as long as you have an education, you need this education to give you opportunities and possibilities that I never had. And I think that's a very powerful statement. I think that's a very powerful acknowledgement to just say, hey, look, my position in this life is, since I had you, is to give you every possibility and every, opportunity that I can. And the only way that I see that being possible is for you to get an education. And I think that's powerful to tell your children that, like, this, I don't have the skill set to give you what you need to make it to the next level, but I can show you that this education will get you there. It'll open you up to more things than you can know, more things than I can ever know, but it's something important that I feel like that you should know. I think that's powerful. So with that being said, well, we'll start off with this. The theme of this podcast is going to be strength. I do think that takes an incredible amount of strength for, just as Alice Walker said, women, they batten down doors, they iron starch white shirts, they were the backbone of the culture as she saw it. They were husky of voice, stout of step, they sounded put together. They sounded, when they came down the street, you heard them coming down the street. It's definitely a very powerful poem. They were women then, my mama's generation. Almost like how when it comes in and say, hey, they were men then. You know what I mean? Like, these were the real mofos. I think that's a very powerful statement. And even with all that being said, I do believe that education is a very important part of giving your kids the future. And while this poem was written in a time where education truly was the access that you needed to open many doors for you, I do feel like that in this day and age in 2019 that, schools and, the secondary option and public education, with how as expensive as it's gotten and how many kids it is driving into debt, I just don't think that I don't think that education now is what's needed to propel people forward and give them new opportunities. I mean, I do feel like education in general is what's needed, but not at any secondary institution that you would need. Like, high school education is definitely needed. You need a high school education, or at least a GED equivalent, to say that you have basic understanding and comprehension skills. But beyond that, I mean, my school really didn't teach me that much. I had home ec, I believe, in ninth grade. Shout out NCH. I don't want to say the whole name on here, but shout out NCH. If you're from Cincy, Ohio, you know what school I'm talking about. So yeah, shout out NCH. But they got rid of home ec when I was in like ninth grade. And I never learned. I remember briefly touching on finance and cooking for yourself, but we never got into any depth about it. And looking back on it, that was probably the most important part of the whole high school system, is like, hey, you're going to be out here on your own. You're going to need to know some finance, some education. You're going to need to be informed on how to take care of yourself when you get out of this school. I mean, that to me, there needs to be a much heavier emphasis on home ec. And I know that, these teachers are forcing to teach for the curve. To teach for the testing so that they have to, grade on a curve to make sure the kids get to the level that they can be tested so that the schools and the teachers can be evaluated. And it's just a whole big mess. But education at this day and age has gotten so bad. And I keep saying education, but I do mean public 4-year universities, because trade schools and community colleges, I feel like that is the way forward to get your foot in the door, to get you at least a entry level job with some meaning, some actual experience behind it. Because a lot of these, community colleges or these 2-year schools, they're giving you hands-on experience. Like in the last part of your year, they either put you in the room with a professional, or they put you in a job, in a job placement, a co-op. I went to Cincinnati State here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and my second year, majoring in accounting technology, they had me working at a bank, as a teller. It wasn't anything high level, but it did open up opportunities, and I did become a financial services rep, and I started handling like much deeper, higher level job positions than I would have had just starting out as, in a different field. So I do feel like that, that's important. Other than just going, getting your schooling and your education and leaving, and then you can't find a job. That seems to be the one of the number one issues, is that once these kids are graduating, once they finish in school, they have no experience, and these jobs don't care. They're interested in your education, but they want to know that you have experience, that you have recommendations, that if they hire you, that they're not just putting a body in a seat. So it's a real catch-22 almost. It's like they want you to have the education, but they want you to also have the experience. But the places where they value the most education is not giving you the experience until 3-4 years in, when you've already committed, $100,000-$200,000 worth of debt. So it's just an interesting dynamic. If anyone is listening out there, I do suggest that you do not go to a 4-year school unless you already have a scholarship and a full ride. You know exactly what you're going to get into, or you need this degree to get a job to continue pursuing the job that you already have. But if you're fresh out of school and you don't know what you're doing and you think you're just going to get this job just to get it, I would suggest to try a community college, just to get your feet wet, to see what you really want to do. That way that you're not, you look up and you say, oh, I haven't even picked a degree and I spent a year in school and I'm up, $20,000-$30,000 in debt. It's like, wow, that's, that's a used car. I'm in the Midwest, so that's a shitty house, really. So yeah, I would say, while in the poem that Alice Walker used, I do believe that she meant general education. I do believe that, the generation that she was speaking of, her mother's generation, was from a time where they did value knowing how to dot your I's and cross your T's, of being informed about your business. And I have to say that she's absolutely right. But in this day and age, being well educated does not mean in any shape or form to have to go to a post-education secondary college. It's to know how to make yourself money, and how to bring yourself value, how to bring your family value in this day and age. And that's strength. This all me. This all me. This all me. People get so caught up with the term of strength. To me, it's everyone and everything has a strength and everything has a weakness. People get caught up with this equality, treat me equal, or we're the same, or we're no different. It's like, we are different. That's what's beautiful. That is the true value in where you gain appreciation in life, is you see things that are different, that just are slightly, it's kind of almost the same, but no, there's just a little bit of difference. I noticed, it's just like, hey, his eyes are different, or hey, why do you talk like that? Where are you from? It's those subtle differences that give life such a great meaning and depth to it. that I think it's silly and foolish to just write off everybody and just say, hey, we're all equal. We're all the same. We should all be treated the same. I saw online the other day is that we should be fighting for equity, not equality. Equality meaning that we're all treated equal. We're all treated the exact same way, meaning that if I get a bike, you get a bike, the girl down the street gets a bike, the child gets a bike, everybody gets a bike. That includes the person with no legs. They would get a bike because that's equality. That includes the baby that doesn't even know how to ride a bike yet, that might end up hurting themselves if they try to ride the bike. That would be equality. But equity, making sure that everybody has an equal starting point. Saying that person with no legs, we'll give you a wheelchair. We want you to be mobile. We want you to be able to move like these other people move. Saying that baby right there, let's give that baby a stroller for her mother so that she can move. She can be mobile. She can move around. She's not confined to being forced to walk on her feet. That's equity. And that's a beautiful concept. Everybody should be given the exact same opportunity. Not the exact same things. It's not fair if an example that I think of is the Band-Aid. It's like, all right, you jam your finger. And I say, oh, you hurt yourself. Everybody needs to be treated equal. Anyone who hurts themselves deserves a Band-Aid. Somebody bangs their knee and injures their knee, and I say, oh, God, let's put a Band-Aid on that finger. And they say, I banged my knee. It's like, well, we're all equal. We're all treated the same. So you hurt yourself, so let me put that Band-Aid on your finger. Equity is saying, hey, you injured yourself. We need to help you. We all need the same exact opportunity. And I believe that's correct. It's just nuance. That's all it is. It's just the things that they don't get to say, on their talking points on TV, or that they don't put in their blog titles, or that the media doesn't say, that they just, their talking points aren't convenient. It's nuance. It's yeah, but no. It's the subtleties that people just seem to overlook in this day and age. It's like you're either, you're left or you're right. There's nothing in the middle. And once again, there was a good interview by Trevor Noah with the Breakfast Club, and he said that in this country, the biggest problem is that there's only two parties. And I think that's the problem with anything. It's just that for if you only have two binary choices, if you only have a yes or no, a one or two, a right or left, then you miss so much. I mean, it's good when given directions, it's good on a multiple choice, but in real life, life is just so much more nuanced than just yes or no, then one or two, then, left or right, then blue or red, then I'm conservative, you're Democrat. It's nuance. Sorry, the Trevor Noah interview. Yeah, he was saying that, we've got 20, over 27 different kinds of cereal, and we only have two political parties. It's like, yeah, we've got 15 different pizza places all in the same city, but we only have two political parties. It's like, yeah, there's clearly much more going on than just two binary choices. It's like, okay, you're left. Well, are you far left? Are you middle left? Are you left leaning? It's like, okay, then there's more than just being left. There's nuance. And while there are more than two political parties, for the most part, I mean, we know it's Republican and Democrat. It's blue or red. I mean, your person might win in the general election, but we're talking about a presidential election. I mean, you're left or right. Even Trump, he's not really he runs on the Republican ticket and he has some ideal values, but compared to most other presidents, he's not a real Republican. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter. His ideals and concepts, some of his ideals are kind of left. I mean, he's popularist, definitely, but it's unique. Popularist, whatever. But yeah, as I was saying, Trump, it runs on the Republican ticket because he knew that was the only ticket that he could win on. And, he's all about winning. But in traditional speaking, I mean, he's a populist. But, in this country, they run on the left or the right. I mean, that's the only way that you're going to win. And that's just a fact of the matter. So it is what it is. But just remember, just because someone runs on your ticket, just because someone is wearing a pin, just because somebody, chooses to say, hey, I am this. I mean, it doesn't really mean that they are. You can be in the middle. You can be on the left or the right. You can be slightly to the right. You can lean to the left. You can be far, you can be an extremist. It just depends on where you fall in the political spectrum. And to me, it's all about your ideals. That's what strength is to know what you stand by. To know that regardless of what I stand for, this is what I stand for. And that is another thing that they talked about, during that interview. I don't think it was about, Trevor Noah's a political guy, he, the Comedy Central host of the Daily Show. So I'm sure that that's what they were getting to. But yeah, in this country, it does need to be some sort of, okay, this is what the values are. And in order to represent this party, you have to stand by these values. If you do not stand by these values, then we can't have you on our party. And that's where I think a lot of people on both sides, it's like, I have no problem with standing by your values and standing by what you believe in. But when you start letting this corporate influence money and this, these ulterior motives start influencing what you're doing and the decisions you're making and the people that you're picking and the cabinet members that you have and, what you are allowing to happen and what you're not allowing to make in the law, it's like, okay, you're a corrupt politician. I can get behind you whether you're on the left or the right as long as your policies make sound sense. For people. I'm not one of these people that care about what corporations are doing or what the taxes that they have to pay. I don't care. I just don't. If you have a business, then you have to pay your fair share. That's just how I feel. That's why I say that I'm left leaning, is because that's just how it is. I own a business. I pay taxes. I do what I have to do to get by. Yes, it sucks. I wish I could have more, but me giving back to, it's the government, but I see it as my community. Me giving back and paying my fair share is fair to me. And I don't think it's fair for me to cut corners, for a corporation when personally, me as a person, I have to pay taxes, meaning that every other person has to pay taxes, whether or not they have a business. So I just think that's the fair share. That's just the cost of doing business. It's just how it is here in America. You have a business, you're paying for the infrastructure of the American way. Yeah, it's not fair to pay taxes, and they take a big chunk, and we can never own property here like you can in other countries because we always have to pay property taxes. And if you forget to pay your property taxes for long enough, the government will come and take your land. So the question is raised, then, is it truly your property? You know what I mean? Like that's the big debate that goes on here in the U.S. is, once you buy your property in, let's say, Africa, it's yours. There's no property taxes. There's no oversight. They don't come in and check on you. That is your land. That's the end of it. So, yeah, it's just the cost of paying business here. The cost of being in America, our strength is that we have a very strong infrastructure and system. No matter how corrupt that system might be, we do have a system that was set up a long time ago for people to benefit and profit. And you're paying you're paying your share for that infrastructure to start your business here in this country. And from an objective point of view, it makes sense. From a capitalistic, money-hungry point of view, I want my damn money. But what are you going to do? So that leads me into my topic about strength in America, and that is voting. I do think that being here in America, one of the great abilities and strengths and powers that we have is that being a U.S. citizen, as long as you haven't committed a felony, as far as I'm aware, it still stands in all 50 states that is, if you've committed a felony, you cannot vote in a presidential or general election. But I could be wrong about that. But yeah, as long as you haven't committed a felony, to my knowledge, you can vote in any and every election that you wish to. And while some people do feel as though their vote gets lost in a presidential election because there's so many people, I do think that being educated on politics so that you can convey that information to other people, is very important. You don't know, maybe you can change somebody's opinion with giving them information on a politic or on a policy. On a politician or about a policy that they might not know about. Maybe you can convince people. I'm very optimistic about certain things. But maybe that is a possibility that you can do that, to say, hey, well, did you know this about policy A? Or, well, this politician is supporting that. And that's how real change gets started. I have no problem with people complaining about the way that this country works or complaining about the way that things are. It's like, hey, that's your American right. We get to complain. That's the beautiful thing about this country. Our First Amendment right is freedom of speech. We can say anything and everything that we want to. And that is your right. And I might not listen to it, but you have the right to speak your piece. But it gets on my nerves when people complain about it and then they won't do anything about it, whether that be voting or whether that be trying to run in an election or whether that be, trying to influence certain sects of the population to get out and vote, to get out and talk to their politicians, to get out and call and to make movements. I mean, this world is so complicated but so simple at the same time. It's a lot easier to just sit on the computer and complain. I completely agree with you, but it's a lot easier to just reach out to a politician or a campaign or an office and just voice your opinion. It takes 5-10 minutes. It's not that long. Call them up, leave a voicemail, shoot them an email, let them know. That's what we have as Americans. I mean, I will hope that you wouldn't take things too far. We're seeing that a lot in this Trump day and age, is that people are taking their politics very, very seriously, but I mean, voice your opinion. Be respectful. The politics come from the people. The government needs to be afraid of the people. That's just how this thing goes. I mean, the power in this country is from the people, the Americans. If you were born in this country, God forbid you're going through some of that, the dreamer situation where that even if you were born, they're trying to send you back. That's horrible. But if you were born in this country and you are a U.S. citizen, that is where the strength comes from. You are the backbone of this society. And regardless of what they try to treat you or say to you, regardless of what they say online or how they attack you, being a U.S. citizen has its perks. We get to vote. We get to voice our opinion. The Second Amendment right. I mean, there are so many things about this country that I absolutely love, which is why I vote. I get out every election that I can and voice my opinion through voting. I'm not much of a political activist. I don't speak on stuff too much just because, people can change at the drop of a hat, and it's hard to actually back people because an argument can be made that the concept is much more important than the person. The person is flawed and is human. So that if that person gets caught in a scandal, then it might take that issue, that policy down along with him. And that's absolutely terrible. But that's just the world that we live in. So we're American. All of us, regardless of the shade of your skin, the culture that you come from. If you were born in this country or you became a naturalized citizen, you're a part of this country, man. Welcome on in. Come on and join the party. There are certain groups of people that say, we're the separatists, or, you want to go back to where you're from, or, hey, we want to go back and we're taking all the people along with you. It's like, I hear you. And I support anyone who wishes to go back to their country of origin, to learn about everything that you want to learn about, to learn about who you are as a person. But the way that I see things, this is where I was born, this is where my mama was born, this is where my grandmama was born. This is where we have put our stock in. So this land, this country owes us. We've put in the blood, sweat, and tears to help move this country forward, whether that was my grandpa sharecropping, whether that was my grandmother becoming a nurse, whether that was them experiencing the racism that they experienced. They put in work. So yeah, it's time to reap our benefits, to reap our due. And whether that's me voting, whether that's me voicing my opinion, whether that's me showing my power as a citizen, I feel as though that I've earned that right through the people that I love that have been here. Now, unfortunately, my lineage does end after a couple of generations after my grandpa. Apparently there were some birth certificates down. We're from the South, Alabama originally. And I was born in Ohio, but he's from the South, and a large part of my family is. And at some portion, the birth certificates and information on us gets lost down there. It gets jumbled. and we can't trace it out. So that is a bummer. So that does make me kind of want to get the 23andMe, but you know, I'm hearing all this crazy stuff about them leaking information to the FBI, and I mean, dude, that just sounds absolutely crazy to me that they can give away your information because they want to. It's like, dude, I just wanted to know where I was from. Now I got Uncle Sam banging on my door telling me I'm part of a conspiracy. You know, it's like, come on, man. But I wouldn't mind if I learned where my lineage was from. But once again, I'm African American, so I'm sure parts of me are from Africa, and those villages, they've been so war torn and so moved around. It's like, even if I'm traced to a particular part of Africa, it's not like I can go to there and expect to see the same people that were from there when my people were originally, you know, moved off the continent. So, I mean, it's interesting. The concept is cool. If you feel like you want to learn more about yourself, just know what you're getting into going in, and, you know, definitely share your results. Definitely share your results. But yeah, sorry I got off on a tangent. The people that are saying, they want to go back to their own country, they want to go back to their country of origin, you know, I definitely support it. But I've put in my time and work to be a part of this country because of what my ancestors have done as recently as 2 generations ago. So I don't feel as though I need to go back to the country where I was born. I feel like this is where I'm from, and I have a right, and this country owes me for me to be able to voice my opinion. This is our America. Now, I don't believe the Make America Great Again slogan is a little controversial, because for African Americans to make America great again, it sounds like you're saying, like, what you mean again? We ain't been out of slavery that long. So what you mean make America great again? I'm going to just need a reminder. That's where a lot of the left's Trump issues come from, is that some of his verbiage is very controversial. It pokes us at a certain way when you're like, wait a minute, are you trying to, that's the thing about racism in 2019, is that it's very sly, very slick. It's hidden behind entendres, and it's hidden in the way that they suggest and word things. Some people so racist, they don't even realize that they're racist. They just think that that's how people should view the world. And man, that's crazy. It's like, if you racist, I hope it's easier to know that you're racist. Like, I'd rather deal with a racist than knows they're racist. Like, I don't like black people. That's just how I get down. It's like, okay, you cool. It's like, well, I'm left leaning, and I do believe that these African Americans are wasting their opportunity because, you know, in their communities, they value. It's just like, dude, you're so preachy. You're telling me how it is in the community you don't even go to. You said you have no affiliation with the community, with the neighborhood. You don't care about what's going on. You just want to tell us about what you think about what's happening in those communities. And that is racist in itself. It's like, you don't care about getting into the data. You just want to tell us about what you think. It's like, that is racist. But, you know, some people don't know they're racist. That's crazy to me, but that's how it is. But, yeah. Anyway, back to this thing. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm a part of this country. You know, they say that they say during a traumatic event, like PTSD, for example, that it changes you at a biological level. Like, your body processes information and biologically changes because of something that you personally experienced. And this is seen in veterans and people who've been returning from war. It's like your body physically changes the way that it operates, or the way that it is made up after going through something like that. Your mind no longer processes things the same. And I think that it was the same way with slavery. It was a very traumatic event in this country that forever changed and shifted the African Americans of this country. So while people say that they want to go back to where they came from, I believe that African Americans, obviously in America, are a unique breed because we went through something as a shared race that nobody else has gone through. Now, people on the Caribbeans have, but they didn't make it to the U.S. to experience the same, I say, climate and landlocked imprisonment that that we've had. Like Caribbeans had their own kind of slavery, which was much, much different and much more extreme at the tail ends. But here in America, we found a strength in it. We survived. We persevered. We freed, we became free in 1856. Segregation was still a thing, but we still learned how to thrive in our neighborhoods, and we still learned how to find strength, and we still learned how to survive. And that in itself is a strength to me. Learning how to survive. Realizing that you don't have what you need, but that future generations might, and knowing that you have to survive to give them an opportunity. And then everything that happened after that, the civil rights, the fights for equality, the innovation, the Harlem Renaissance, the creation, the beautifulness of it all. But it all came from those men and women that said, we've got to survive just to give our future generations a chance. And that's strength. That's power. Yeah, we'll talk about that in another episode. The segregation and whether or not it was good. Because it's in this day and age, kids in school are losing their culture. They're losing their sense of belonging because they don't have the community. They don't have the group think that they would if they were separated into their own communities. If African American kids were allowed to grow up with African American kids to learn about where they come from, about the opportunities that they have. If kids were allowed to grow up with people that look like them, and they were allowed to learn about a shared history, a shared, knowledge that they would all have, that might change the way the schools operate. But we'll get into that in another episode about whether or not, kids of different races should be allowed to stay in their own groups and communities to learn and to be educated, and then to rejoin society after they've been instilled with that culture, with that power, with that sense of belonging before they enter the rest of the community and the rest of the world and the rest of other cultures. Because you can get lost. You can. But like I said, we'll save that for another day. But yeah, the African Americans of this, I go off on tangents, so I'm sorry if I'm losing you guys. The African Americans of this country, while they do have the right and the ability to go back to where they come from and to learn everything that they would like to, I would hope that you would plant your feet here in America and vote and to voice your opinion and to say that, hey, I'm a part of this narrative. This land is my land, because we're owed it for what our ancestors went through. We are unique. Definitely. So moving on from that, still going to stay on the topic of Americans and strength. I am officially endorsing a Democratic candidate. While I do not think he will win the general election, I do support his ideals and thoughts, and that is candidate Andrew Yang. I think his ideas and policies are really refreshing and creative. His idea on green clean energy is very interesting. I definitely suggest people check that out, especially with his idea of getting thorium into the renewable energy landscape. Also, his most well-known tactic is the UBI, Universal Basic Income, that everybody would be giving a base income of $1,000 a month, paid for by his VAT tax, which is a value-added tax on tech companies and their gains in the 21st century economy. It's a very interesting platform. Not only the UBI is interesting, his freedom dividend, as he calls it. In general, he's a interesting guy as far as politics. He is a entrepreneur, so he doesn't come from the political world, which may be why some of his ideas seem so different and radical, but they're definitely very intriguing. I've been watching politics now since Obama was first elected. That was my first election when I was 18. And that was awesome. But even Obama to me didn't appear like this Andrew Yang character does. He seems very idealistic. He seems very altruistic. He seems like he's really looking out for the best of this country. And that's a unique feeling that I haven't really had with a politician before. Even with other politicians that I might have agreed with some of their policies, they did have some other things that I disagreed with. It might be because he is coming from such an outside situation that I haven't seen much of his stuff that I disagree with, but he's an interesting character. He's an interesting character. I think that, he says in this new economy, the fourth industrial revolution, that technology is going to be changing things in unprecedented ways that we've never seen before. And by all accounts, I do think he's right. Especially in the way of Amazon and Facebook, how they're just eating up data and information and not paying taxes and dodging taxes and shifting things around to other countries to make it look like they did business here or there. I mean, it's really getting shady in 2019 about how these businesses are doing business. It's no longer just a mom and pop shop. You set up and you sit down and you get your products moving and you sell to him, you sell to her, and maybe you can grow from there. It's completely different. You can operate in 20 different countries and create products that aren't even physical now. You don't have to employ a lot of people. You can employ 10 high functioning, software developers, and you can create bots that do all the work for you. And it's just, the playing field has just shifted so much that I think it would be interesting to have somebody like him who sees the economy differently, who isn't a numbers guy to run it. Trump's whole thing was, I'm an outsider and, all I do is win. So that was my best Trump impersonation, rated from 1 to 10. But, Yang has some of those similar qualities, and I'm not a Trump supporter, but it's just interesting to see the parallels that they have. And it's like me supporting Yang is almost like, oh, well, I see how they could have supported Trump in the beginning. Yang doesn't have as much, racial, tension and issues that, Trump did in the beginning portions of the election, but it's definitely worth a watch. It's definitely worth tuning in and hearing him speak. I'm interested to see, where this goes. He also said Kamala Harris dropped out. I'm not surprised. Looking at some of her policies, she seemed like she was much more right-leaning than left-leaning. She was for a lot of, capitalist punishment and private prisons. And, she had a history of just extended sentences. Just a bunch of things that I just didn't vibe with her. I believe Cory Booker stepped out. I think he did step out, but yeah, the race is getting smaller and smaller, but Andrew Yang has got my support. I wish him nothing but the best. Yang gang. You can donate to his campaign at andrewyang2020.com. As little as I did 30. I'm going to do 30. I'm going to give the guy $30. I'm going to say, hey, I appreciate you, man. Keep holding it down. I'm here in Ohio, so I'm one of the battleground states. So definitely come out and support the guy. I think the $1,000 a month, will do a lot for not only just financially helping people, but mentally. Before I had, the current job that I have, I was working from check to check and I was stressing and I was, burnt out. But now, with the help of the podcast and my music and everything, it's like without the money that I was getting from my new job that I have that allowed me to ease up the burden of stressing from check to check, I was able to invest money into my business, and then I was able to create more and more. Then I was able to, feel happiness, like real happiness about creating something that I love to do. And I think that's what the freedom dividend would do, is that if you give people money in their pocket to say, hey, this is $1,000 a month, you can do what you want. You can secure those, what is it? Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Maslov? Oh God, y'all are going to kill me. I'm having a moment here. But, the hierarchy of needs, and it starts with, food and water, and then basic living conditions, shelter. And, once you have those secured, then you can actually find true happiness. You can, once you have those secured, when you know that your basic food and water and living conditions are taken up, then you can actually say, okay, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to go back to school and learn another trade? Do I want to start a business? Do I want to invest in myself? and it would build communities. You have people who it's $1,000 per adult. So you could have, mothers and fathers staying together because they want that, that's just shared income. That's 24,000, $1,000 a month is 12,000 a year. That's, 12,000 a person, but 24,000 for two people. That's 24,000 a year in a household. From people that do not have to work to find income. They can invest in themselves. They can invest in the baby. They can invest in whatever they feel like they want to invest in because their instant needs are taken care of. And I think that's super powerful. I think that is very impactful. So Mr. Yang has all my support. Best of luck and wishes to him. I hope that he pushes it as far as he can. And if he doesn't win, I do hope that his ideas at least make it into the American fold of thought. At least make it to inspire other people who will follow up behind him to carry on these ideals and these concepts, because they are new. They're very interesting. He seems to be pulling from past information and past data, and which is so refreshing to me. It's like, oh, this is somebody who actually vetted the ideas and concepts that they're talking about. He's not just running around here going to actually just get numbers and to get funding and to get money. He's actually starting from the grassroots, from people, from everyday you and me people, to say, hey, contribute to my campaign and we can get this thing going. So you got to support it here, Mr. Yang, here in Ohio. I like Kasich. He was a Republican. He did have some controversial things going on with him, but I did like Kasich. So I'm a middle of the road kind of guy. We'll see what you can do. Good luck to you, Mr. Yang. Best of luck, man. All right. Before I get out of here, just got a couple of things to say. Got a new email address for you guys to reach out to me, to give me some topics for shows, to give me some questions or comments, and to let me know what you have going on in your life. If you have anything that you want to share to me for me to address on the show, please email me at the Anonymous Author Podcast at gmail.com. That's the Anonymous Author Podcast at gmail.com. Not going to spell that, because if you watch the show, then just click the banner and you can spell out the Anonymous Author Podcast. So yeah, just email me there if you have any topics, any subjects, or if you have anything you want to just talk about and let me know and I can talk about on the show if you allow me. Just send me something. Lastly, from the last podcast, I did announce that I will be working on a new EP. We do have that name picked out, and I'm going to let you guys know. The name of the EP is From Homegrown to Unknown. Yep, that's the name of the EP, From Homegrown to Unknown. It does have some aspects about it that are personal to me and my homie Fobator. Yeah, so basically it's like this: from home known to ungrown. It's kind of like a letter to from homegrown to unknown. We're the homegrown, and we're sending it out to people who might not know us. That's one way to look at it. From homegrown to unknown is another way, is that we were born here in Cincinnati. We're homegrown, and now when you try to get out here in the world, you realize, it's a lot of people. Also, another way to look at it is from homegrown to unknown. We're both homegrown, born here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it's two of us, and we're unknown to the rest of the world. So, like I said, it works on a couple different levels, but From Home Known to Ungrown is the name of the EP. It will be dropping March 2020. Thanks guys for dealing with me today, for dealing with the music, for staying tuned, for being fans. I appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys send me an email, reach out to me, at me on social media, at Anonymous Rap Guy. You guys take it easy and have a good one. Happy holidays to everybody. Get a belly full and be happy. Peace.